slide. Turn it. Okay, as we tell you, working on the Rubik's Cube. So when we do this in class with the students, we're teaching them about growth mindset. So a lot of times we hear the fixed mindset words with these Rubik's Cubes. Like, this is challenging. We're pretty quiet in here today, but usually the kids will be saying, this is so hard, I can't get this. And so we yeah, impossible. We hear a lot of the fixed mindset words, giving up early, they're scared, and they avoid challenges, negative feedback. But once we like using this as one of our lessons, because once we get into it, we can show, we have little booklets that go with it. Pass out the booklets, we have the videotapes, we tell the kids they can get on. You know, there's lots of videos even at home that you can that teaches how to do the Rubik's Cube. We go through the steps, and we talked about how that middle one never changes color all the way through, and how orange is always opposite red, yellow is always opposite white, and blue opposite green. So they learn through some techniques and steps. There are ways to do things. So they'll have to work at it. And sometimes it takes, it might take somebody a little bit harder. It's a lot longer for me to solve
hard, no joke.
So we're working towards talking about the growth mindset, having the desire. A lot of them are passionate, so some kids will go home and really continue with this, work on it on their own, and they'll come back and be able to solve it in 10 minutes. And we're wanting them to know that, yes, with effort and with trying, you can achieve certain things.
So you'll notice this is Star Wars themed today. So we have a quick Yoda inspirational video for you.
We'll never get it out now. Always ready to work connect between. You do nothing that I say. Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different. No different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned. Alright, I'll give it a try. No. Why not? Do. Or do not. There is no try.
So obviously we're not that stringent with our kids. We do want them to try. But we show this just as a reminder that you can do things that are difficult or that seem impossible, like a Rubik's Cube. All right. So you've heard us talk a lot at the district level about social emotional health and that it's so important, but I think sometimes that's kind of nebulous, kind of pie in the sky. So last time we were together, I know some of you were here for the other talk, about how we are implementing kind of the systems piece and the operations piece of how we are delivering social emotional health. But today we're going to dig a little deeper and talk about SEL and the relationship with academics. So I have a brief video for you.
What do you really want for your children? You want them to be happy, healthy, able to relate to other people, have the ability to set goals and to make good decisions. If we don't teach them in school, a lot of children are not getting these most basic, most important, critical life skills.
Our children are begging us for the right to believe in themselves and the right to be inspired. The children are crying out and saying, I don't see purpose in my life. I don't have a dream anymore.
You make achievements, but you gotta get to the top.
It's like, okay, I'm gonna go to school, but what's the value if I'm not even going to be able to relate to anyone? SEL is trying to bring a balance to the individual and what are the personal competencies you need to develop to be successful. How do you pull them all together so that kids can relate and navigate the world more effectively?
It's a great demand, and it's a growing demand. I think it comes from all kinds of sectors. It comes from the business world, who believes that the biggest skill problem we have is not technical skills, it's the ability to work together with others.
They want them to be collaborative, communicative, creative, be able to work in a group setting. And so for us, it's a huge part of that student's education.
We want for kids to embrace one another, to accept people for who they are, to know how to relate to one another, to know how to understand themselves.
It helps me have a happier brain and be more efficient.
Definitely straightened out my life. I can't even like think where to begin. It just teaches you how just to be empathetic towards others and how to listen and how to care.
It's really about developing those attitudes, skills, and knowledge that allows a student and an adult to achieve that, that approach to how they will work as a person.
We have the evidence, we know it works. We have the compelling argument that we need the whole child. I think it is our time to really capitalize on it.
We actually do have evidence now. We did not have it 15 years ago. I mean, to be fair, we were in the R&D phase in the field of social emotional learning. We're not in that phase anymore. Content is more and more of a commodity. Children own what they want now at very young ages. They will become self-directed. They can find out the dates of the Civil War without learning from a teacher. So the question that they're bringing to school is, who am I? How do I work with you? How do we build the team? What is our purpose? Where do I fit? That nurture children to believe that it's worth learning.
So that overview video is our purpose. Kids are in the digital age. They can look up anything. They don't necessarily need me to teach them a list of dates. But those soft skills, like relating to one another and making eye contact, is not only useful for forming friendships, but for future employment. And so we're talking today about the longitudinal implications of what we're doing here every day. So, social emotional health is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, reactions, and relationships. We prioritize social emotional health so kids can achieve their full potential. Kids with strong social emotional health demonstrate self-control, they communicate well, problem solve, are empathetic, respectful, grateful, gritty, and optimistic, traits we admire in the people with whom we want to work and maintain friendships. So this model actually comes from the Momentous Institute of Dallas, but this is Briscoe's model as well. And so in order for us to be change makers and to go out into our community and innovate and be career-minded individuals, that starts with safe relationships, not only at school, but in our homes and community at large. In self-regulation and awareness of self, you'll notice it involves the brain, breathing, the body, feelings, and impulse control. That first layer is really what we target each day in our morning meetings. I also target it in my guidance. Specialist teachers, once a week, students get a specialized lesson called Character Lab, so they have time as specialist teachers that they're also bringing those soft skills to specials, basketball, soccer, etc. The next level, awareness of self, gratitude, optimism, grit, and resilience. This higher level of awareness of self comes to us from Character Lab. You may have heard me speak on that previously, but the district has a social emotional curriculum. They have found that research suggests if you're able to master and display these traits, over time you are more likely to be more connected to others, not suffer from mental illness, and also have better work outcomes. So we are eventually hoping to raise change makers, but it all starts with safe relationships.
And what happens when we fail? So sometimes with students, when we see that, we almost think, some of them are so frustrated, so in denial, we almost think they're injured or hurt. But really, they just might be a perfectionism trait that they have. They just have to be very best, have to make that A. And so we're teaching other kinds of the frustration tolerance. It's like she said in Character Lab, I mean, everybody's doing it across the school. And it's also just talking about how we praise children. Just say, oh, that's such a good job, you got an A. Instead, we need to be praising more their effort, study habits, work effort. I think there's a video up here. Yes, the bottom that kind of talks about that as well.
So check this out. Carol Dweck and her colleagues wanted to look into the impacts that praise had on children's development. So what they did is they took over 400 fifth grade students from all across the nation, and they did a really simple yet interesting study. Here's how it went down. They gave all the kids a really easy nonverbal IQ test. There were 10 questions, and at the end of the test, they praised all the children in one of two ways. The first group was praised for their intelligence. So they said, wow, great job, you must be really smart at this. Now the second group was praised for their effort. So they said, wow, great job, you must have worked really hard at this. Now this is a really subtle difference, but the impact it had is incredible. So after praising the kids and getting them divided up into the two groups, they gave them all an option for their next test. The first option was, hey, this next test is going to be a little bit harder, but it's going to be a great opportunity to learn and grow. Now the second option was, this next test will be similar to the first, and you will surely do well on it. Now the interesting thing is, out of the group that was praised for their intelligence, 67% of them chose the easier option, while 92% of the kids who were praised for their effort chose the harder test. This is unbelievable to think about, how just the subtle difference in the way that they were praised had such an impact. Carol Dweck explains why this happened.
The child or adult hears, oh, you think I'm brilliant and talented. That's why you admire me, that's why you value me. I better not do anything that will disprove this evaluation. As a result, they enter a fixed mindset, they play it safe in the future, and they limit the growth of their talents. Whereas focusing on the strategies they use, the way they're stretching themselves and taking on hard tasks, the intense practice they're doing, those are the kinds of things that say to a child or an older athlete, it's about the process of growth. As a result, they don't feel, oh, if I make a mistake, you won't think I'm talented. They think, oh, if I don't take on hard things and stick to them, I'm not going to grow.
Next, Dweck and her colleagues gave all the kids a really difficult test. It was one that they would surely fail, but they wanted to look at how the different kids attacked this challenge. Dweck noticed that the group that was praised for effort worked harder, longer, and actually enjoyed this test more than the group that was praised for their intelligence. This group got really frustrated with this test and had the tendency to give up early. After this artificially induced failure round, all of the kids were given a third and final test. Now this test was the same level of difficulty as the first one, but check out the results. The group that was praised for their intelligence actually did worse on this test than the first one. Their average score actually dropped by 20%, while the group that was praised for their effort did significantly better, raising their average score by nearly 30%. This is a 50% difference in performance that was caused by a few subtle differences in the way that they were praised. This study shows how praise can either make or break a child's development. I mean, we all do it. We all want to be positive with the children we work with, so teachers, coaches, parents are always looking for ways to support their kids and tend to praise them quite a bit. So we need to look at research like this and realize, okay, praise is a good thing and there's nothing wrong with being positive, but we need to be very careful about praising someone's intelligence or abilities and focus more on the process and the effort that they put forth. I think this is a pretty easy fix that will help us develop growth mindsets within the kids that we work with. And as all the research shows, having a growth mindset has a big time impact on the development of a child, whether it's on the court, in the classroom, or just in life. Thanks so much for following along and watching this video. For more like this, visit Championship.
I know both Laura and I like this video, and it's a good reminder. Even for me, I have 2 kids at home, and I have to remind myself because sometimes you get caught up, when the report cards come out and you say that, but I've had to really go back to this and just really praise the effort, like I said, the study habits, and I've got to give to talented kids, GT kids in 5th grade. I tell them, when you get to middle school, you might make your first B, you might make your first C, because the class is very hard, but at least we want to see that you're really putting your best effort, doing a lot of homework, working hard, and that's what we're looking for. So I tell my kids now, I'm okay with the lower grades, just so I see that you are really working and putting your best effort. So I feel like it's just a good reminder. We both love that video.
And the research is stunning. Carol Dweck, she's amazing. I want to be her when I grow up. She's currently at Stanford, and this is her life's work, is talking about motivation in human beings. And so we're not saying don't praise your kids. Let's just be careful in what it is that we are praising.
There's 5 different components to our social emotional learning. A lot of them we do this, all intertwine them all in the classrooms. The self-management, managing emotions and behaviors to achieve the goals. The social awareness. So like I know in my class, we work on social skills a lot, and it's just even working, we do a lot with teamwork, we do a lot with partners, and then also individual work. That just working with others, especially like she said, the digital world, there's so many kids now just looking down at their phone that we're just having to go back and really work on the social emotional skills. Self-awareness, recognizing one's emotions, the responsible decision making. We talked a lot about making the ethical, constructive choices about our behavior, and then the relationship skills down here at the bottom, forming positive relationships with our friends. And I've been encouraging mine, like when they have homework, get their phone number, call them, get together and work together on this project. Because sometimes maybe they don't have a friend or someone's wanting to work with them at school, that if you give them a project, and then that gives them another way to be social.
So as Mrs. Kurtz said, social emotional health is not just one piece. You can break it up into different categories, but none of these categories are possible without, say it with me, relationships. You're going to hear this a lot today. But what I want you to know is self-management and self-awareness, like we talked about, are those higher order skills, but they hinge upon the success of relational skills. So this is where I dive in at the school level. When we brush up against things like academic content, my little brother annoying me, my friends excluding me, as we navigate our world, we like to stay right here in this comfort zone, and if we could, we would camp out here, right? But that's not where growth occurs. So when we are pressed up or brushed up against things that are difficult for us, that often sends us into a variety of states, like fighting, taking flight, freezing, or fainting. Fainting is a new category that has been added when the system is just completely overwhelmed. And so we want to help our kids manage the comfort zone. It's great to stay there, but when you're not there, how can you take care of yourself? So there's hyperarousal and hypoarousal. So up here, this is the fight or flight response when your system says, I gotta get out of here. So that might look like your anxiety, biting nails, pulling hair, overwhelmed, having a chaotic response, or an emotional outburst. Freezing responses may look like dissociation, so stepping back from reality, maybe speaking in third person, not being present in the moment, shutting down completely, memory loss, or just refusing to speak at all. And so when kids, in order to stay in this window of tolerance, we have been working a lot this year with emotional regulation. You might have seen this or heard about this, but every teacher has this, and I taught this in guidance, called the emotional thermometer, and it's important to pay attention to where you are. For example, even now as an adult, if you place me in a math classroom, that's going to send me to the red zone. I'm out of control, I'm uncomfortable, and I don't like it. But if you put me with people, that puts me in the green. I feel good, I feel calm and ready to learn. So think of this as a stoplight. This is a really natural way for you to talk to your kids and say, hey, where are you right now? And I will send this to you if you would like this as a conversation piece in your homes. So in baseball, if they miss a hit, or if they don't qualify for a class that they want, or if a friend leaves them out, this is a great way for them to check in. And you can say, hey, where are you right now? Sometimes it's hard to describe an internal process and put it externally in a way that understands, especially with elementary age kids. So you could slide this across your dinner table and say, just point. And even without a full conversation, you know where your kiddos are. So this is a great tool. This is called the emotional wheel. This is put forth by the district, but if you Google emotional wheel, this comes up. So it's just a way, instead of your kids, if you said, how was your day today? Fine. What'd you learn? Nothing. How do you feel? Angry. Or whatever it might be. This is just an extension on that vocabulary. So it starts, like, let's say I feel mad. This is the word that we get a lot. Okay, well, let's talk about what mad really is. Is it hurt? Are you frightened or scared? And it just kind of gives layers. So this is a great conversation tool for you at home. All that to say that when we are uncomfortable, we have to find ways to get back to the zone. So Darth Vader also has a zone. You can guess that his is red. But zones of regulation, there's another video that talks about this briefly, and I'll show you in just a moment. But like I said, I want you to think of this as like a traffic light. If I'm green, I'm good to go. I can learn, I can make friends, I'm engaged, and I'm logical. If I'm yellow, I need to pay attention to that. That means I'm not out of control yet, but I do need to slow down and pay attention to what's happening to me. If I'm in the red, I have flipped my lid. I might be yelling, I might be throwing things, walking away. And if I'm blue, I'm sad. I'm not at a place, I'm hypo-aroused. I'm not really at a place to talk. I might feel insecure or sad. So we want to have strategies to get back to the green. And so I have a brief video for you on that.
I get really mad when my brother hits me a lot. I don't like it when you say you don't want to play with me. When I'm mad, my brain can get a headache and it can start hurting. Your blood keeps pumping because you're like really mad. And you start to get sweaty because you're getting really, really mad. And then when you start getting really mad, you turn red. When your body can't really control yourself, mad just takes over your body. I just get out of control. It's kind of like if you had a jar and then the jar would be your brain and then you put glitter in the jar and that would be how you would think. If you shook up the jar and the glitter went everywhere, that would be how your mind looks. And it's like spinning around and then you don't have any time to think. And you sometimes punch stuff and people when you don't really mean it. When I get angry, I feel it in my heart. I really don't like when I get angry. The amygdala really reacts, but the prefrontal cortex tries to keep it down. When I feel like I want to, get really angry and yell, I just sometimes, take deep breaths. First you find a place where you can be alone, then you find some way to relax and calm down. When I need to calm down, I take deep breaths. I breathe in through my nose. Sometimes I close my eyes or just take deep breaths. It's calming down, it's not moving. It's slowing down and then it stops. And the heart pumps slow and then it goes into your brain. It's like all the sparkles are at the bottom of your brain. My brain slows down and then I feel more calm and then I'm ready to speak to that person.
closet right here because have you ever heard the adage, settle your glitter? That's a lot of school language, but this is what it's referring to. We show kids a glitter ball, and we say, when your friend bumps into you in line, or when your brother takes something that's not yours, or if you're trying to tackle a hard word in reading, it's kind of like your brain and a glitter ball. So if you shake it up, those are all your feelings swirling around because you want to react. And then when you're calm, when you've settled your glitter through breathing, getting some water, taking a walk around the pod, then you're able to calmly respond to whatever stimulus bugged you in the first place or shook up your glitter. And so at the beginning of the year, K through 5, every classroom got this. In my guidance, I read Fantastic Elastic Brain, and we learned the 5 essential components of the brain and how we are rational, calm, lovely human beings when everything's great. Sometimes life is hard. And when we brush up against those hard moments, it activates our amygdala and that takes over in order to get that stimulus back under control. So that's where we see that impulsive behavior, like we'll push him back, call him a name back, or whatever it may be, in order to feel safe again. So we talk about coping strategies that are safe both academically but also socially, so kids can be in control.
This next one talks about different character traits. So we'll ask the students, maybe tell us somebody you admire. Think about that person. What character traits? What do they have that makes you admire them? So we talk about it, and then all the specialist teachers, they do the character lab. Laura's in there with their class. And I think instead of watching this video on here, yes, the next one, to kind of show them more specific with the character strengths.
And all of these will be made available to you. There's so many videos embedded like on every slide, but in an effort to be respectful of your time, we're going to keep going, but you will have access to these. So I know that if you were in my first presentation this year, you've already heard of Character Lab and you're well versed, but for those of you that are new, Character Lab is the social emotional curriculum that Frisco ISD follows. It is research-based, and there's been lots of long-term studies and cross-sectional ages of students, so it's not just one successful study that they adopted. This is years worth of research. But what they figured out is that there are 3 major categories of social emotional health that need to be targeted through specific traits, like strengths of the heart, strengths of the will, and strengths of the mind. So if you're interested, you can click the QR code and it will take you to characterlab.org, or if you just type in Character Lab into Google, it'll populate and you can read more about that and strategies for implementing at home.
Okay, so looking to the future. Times have kind of changed because in the past, I can tell you from having 2 kids right now in high school, filling out college applications, it used to be so much about the score. Now they're wanting to know, they're asking, okay, what kind of leadership roles have you played? Community service is big. What charity work have you done? So they're looking at everything and not just the grades. And as you'll see in the next slide, and I believe it's in our article, and what even Google. Yes, and it's on your the purple article. You want to glance at that. Even what Google is looking for now in employees. And so you've heard we brought in STEM. STEM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. Brought all of that into the schools. And even now STEAM, they added the A with art. All of this is being taught in the schools. So the article kind of shared the same that we've been telling, how they're looking at not just the academic, but looking at everything, social, emotional, all of the others and character traits that we've been teaching.
All right, so in case we haven't convinced you already, social emotional health, according to a 2011 meta-analysis of 213 studies involving more than 270,000 students, those who participated in evidence-based SEL programs showed an 11 percentile point gain in academic achievement compared to students who do not participate in SEL programs. As you know, you selected Frisco because it's an amazing district. We have a million accolades ranging from academics to music programs, but also we are a district of innovation in the sense that we actively target social emotional health every day. And so as a result, we see higher academic gains. And so if you're looking for ways to support your kids at home, asking them how their day was, teaching them about feelings, talking about regulation and where are you in the emotional thermometer, over time, that has shown an academic gain. And so it's so important to incorporate not only academics, but also preparing kids for their future in order to understand themselves and the world around them.
We have multiple intelligences right here. So this chart, this was developed by a man, Howard Gardner, and he said a lot of schools at the time were just putting too much emphasis on the language, linguistic, and the math. And he said, a child just they don't have to be in the gifted program, but a child can be gifted in different areas. So remind your child, they're really good in music, maybe more out in the nature. But there are little quiz type tests that they can take online if you want to see which one maybe your child has more strengths in. And just reminding ourselves and our kids that there's different areas. It's not just math or just language. This is our last slide, so we just wanted to see if you had any questions for us today. And anything surprised you today?
I know that was like a ton of information. How about you turn and talk at your tables? What's one thing that surprised you today? Turn and tell the people at your table, what's one thing that surprised you today, or one thing you learned?
Praising the praising.
Yeah.
Right, how to praise the child. Yeah, we do have to have a different mindset.
Yes.
Right.
I do have a question. How do you, if you don't have a kid that's particularly very smart, but he doesn't have a lot of self-motivation, and so when they're, you talk about praise their effort, how do you balance that when you know that they're not really putting in their best effort, like they come home with a bad grade and it's, because he's in such a rush to be finished with stuff, so I struggle with slow down and really pay attention. So, I mean, I don't want to, I want to praise him, but I also want to push him to
give their best.
do the best job.
effort.
So I don't want to just arbitrarily say, oh, I really appreciate your effort. I can clearly see that he's not putting in his best effort. I don't want to
You don't want him to be
I don't want to make him feel bad, but I'm also not going to be like, that was so great. But I'm like, oh, it's terrible. You really did a very good job. So I struggle with that. I want to make him feel good about himself.
Yeah, unmotivated, right. A
you know.
child is unmotivated, that's difficult.
Yes.
Because you want them to have that motivation, like you do. And I know we struggle with that with one of mine, and I have to find, when they find their passion, when they find something they're interested in, probably like with your child, and you see them do a good job. So I have to try to praise, oh, look, you did this, we know you can do it. Now you've got to slow down.
Right.
And a lot of times, even our high achiever math kids, they make the most mistakes because they go so fast.
Right.
So we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I mean, we just try different, it's a lot of talking, I feel like, and a lot of going back and looking over it, and rewards, just different.
Yeah. Okay.
Once you see, once he finds his passion, that he's gonna go with that.
Right. Okay. Because I struggle with he and I kind of butt heads when I try to help him.
Right.
Like my husband, he does much better when my husband's trying to help him with his homework.
Right.
If I'm trying to do it, he's like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
It's just like, so it's just frustrating because I don't want to make him feel like.
Right,
that
always
he's
being
you
negative.
just think I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm
Right.
like, well,
I have
you
to.
do, you're doing great, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end of the day, they say that, see, that's why I'm not good in anything. I can't do this because I'm not good in that. So
They feel that way.
statement,
Right.
that
That's why I
comes
like
out
that
very
Howard
easily.
Gardner, the chart, where they're good, they're all good in something, so.
So is it okay if you have a kid that's not, because some kids are really self-motivated and they
Right.
work really hard and they want to do, really well. Is it okay because my husband's we're not gonna reward him, whereas I try to give him rewards, if you, really do a good job and try really hard in this aspect, then maybe you get to watch some extra TV or something like that. Is that
I think every
bad to
child,
do
well, I
that?
think it's different, don't you, for every child? I know with mine, I have one that really likes that Xbox and the gaming,
Right.
video games. And so we've just kind of had to find what works
Okay.
with him. So it's just different for every child, I think, once you find what works.
Right, well, I find that it works, but my husband's he's not gonna we're not gonna reward him, but I mean, in life, like, if you do a really good job at work,
You
then
get a
that's
bonus,
how
get
you get a
paid.
promotion, or
Yes.
that's how, kinda how, I'm like, that's how the world works. Like, if you do good, then you get rewarded, so I feel like, why can't you do that at home?
Absolutely, and you
Yeah.
certainly can.
Yeah.
I was somebody who was late to the party. My older brother's a doctor, National Merit Scholar, like, you know, all that good stuff.
Right.
But I was a tough act to follow because I saw him being successful, and I was like, okay, well, if he's the academic, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
And so I did theater and basketball and all these other things, and school was not my happy place for a long time. And so some kids are late to the party and finding what it is that they like, and that is okay. If he needs a little incentive or motivation, or even put it back on him and say, what would help you work best? He'll tell you.
Yeah.
But I think it's completely appropriate to give them what they need.
Right.
For example, if you had a handful of kiddos and only one kid fell, you're not gonna hand out Band-Aids to everybody just because that's fair. You're gonna give them what they need.
Right.
So.
I struggle with reward versus pride. I really struggle with that.
Yeah.
It feels like a bribe, bribing my kid to do what I think is best for her. It does motivate her, but it does, I mean, you make a good point, that's how you
Right.
it works.
And some
So-
kids, you know, it doesn't even work. Some kids aren't motivated.
I try to say all the time, however much effort you put into your homework,
Yeah.
that's how much.
Yeah.
Right.
Get out of things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's a great point, bribing and making a social contract of working. So if I'm out at Target and I say, if you'll be quiet, I'll get you a piece of candy. That's different than what we're saying.
Right,
We're saying you're holding up your end of the deal and I will honor that.
right.
So I would say starting small. So if they put their dishes away or if they wake up on time, something little,
Right.
just to praise that and say, you know what, you really showed initiative and took care of yourself this morning. I didn't even have to remind you. So giving them praise in areas that extends beyond academics, I think is a great starting point. And then I think it's a social contract. I don't think it's a bribe. If you get down here and you work after going to school for 8 hours a day and you do your homework, I'm totally cool with giving you a break. I think it's thinking about what do kids need. And so if he needs support getting started, that's totally appropriate. Or if he needs to come in and have a break first, then start. I also think, like I said, asking kids what they need is a great way to get them to work because they feel like they have a say and they have some control over their lives.
That does work with one of mine, if he can say what he needs or what he wants. And I know he needs some downtime too, after being in high school all day and, you know, some hard classes. So we have to always build in a little bit of downtime, and then we'll get better results.
Good question.
Sometimes I find myself in a situation where my kid is too overconfident and he's like, I know what I'm doing. In his opinion, I don't. So how do I deal with it when I know he's wrong and I'm trying to correct him or tell him how we should go about it? It's like, I know what I'm doing, let me do this. And I'm like, oh, those situations, how do I make him listen?
I hate to tell you this, we can't make anybody do anything. But in some comfort, I will offer you that there's some people, have you heard the adage, those who don't think must feel? They have to just figure it out for themselves. So on little things, like folding their clothes, or if they forget their lunch one day, those are logical consequences. If you don't listen to me saying, grab your lunch, and you forget it, that's a logical consequence, and you might have to eat in the lunchroom. So for little things, I think it might be appropriate to let them exercise their autonomy and figure out, oh, maybe mom does know what she's talking about, but to give them a little freedom in a controlled, respectful way.
What if they don't even learn them? It's like, let's say for example, he's good in math, and he's fast, so he makes silly mistakes. And I keep repeating, recheck your work after you're done, because he's done in 5 minutes in a 1 hour project.
Yeah, he's like, I know this.
Yeah, so I'm like, you need to slow down because of that. Sometimes he brings in a 70 and that's just class. So I'm like, see, this is what happens, and he's like, oh, okay. But next test, same thing happens. So I
You
don't.
also might reach out to the teacher. I know they have their own set of like checklists. And so maybe she could share that checklist that they use for their work at home. And that way you don't have to say, do this. You can just maybe push that in front of him and say, have you done these steps? When you've done these steps, come back to me.
No, but this happens at school when he's taking the test. at
Right, I'm
school,
just saying if
so-
you wanted to incorporate that at home so it becomes more natural. But yeah, it's
They have
also.
some strategy, words that they use.
Right. It's also developmental. It's hard to get kids to slow down, especially when they grind for 8 hours a day and they do really gritty work. But I understand what you're saying. It's just a continued conversation over time and practice.
It's hard for us to watch our own kids fail.
Yes.
And but I tell, my students that fail is an acronym, really, first attempt in learning. So you are going to fail. There is going to be something out there, whether it's this Rubik's Cube or something, there's going to be challenging things for you. And I think once they have that and they feel it, then hopefully it helps them for the next time and they learn from it.
Another thing I notice, especially maybe I'm getting old, but the current generation is they want to give up easily. They don't want to I don't get this, I'm bad at this. I don't even want to try, why should I? Kind of an attitude. When I was growing up, I didn't get this, I'm going to stick to it till I get it. That's not something I see. It's if not this, I just go on to something else. They want it easy. They want to stick to something that they know. They don't want to try anything new. So how do we
I was gonna say
make that?
that's, I think that, I don't think kids have a different brain now than we did when we were younger, so we've done that somehow. I know that I do way too many things for my son because I was an older parent, and so it's now I'm a stay-at-home mom where I was working before, and I felt well, this is my job now. And so for the longest time, I thought my job was to do everything, and then I had to realize it's also my job to teach him to do things, but it's hard. Sometimes I find that he'll be can I have some more milk? And I get up to go get it for him, and I'm wait, you can go get your own milk.
Right. Or if they forget their lunch, you think, I can run it up. I feel
Yes.
bad, he's not gonna have a great lunch, I'm gonna run it up there.
Yeah.
Instead,
Yeah.
maybe he should eat from the cafeteria.
That's right, yes.
Right.
I think that we
Right.
have spoiled our children.
Have you heard the phrase, the lawnmower?
Yeah.
Have you heard that? We're ahead of them, trying to fix things.
Yes.
And so they don't fail.
Yeah, because you don't want them to feel pain, because it
Right.
makes us feel pain when they feel
Right.
pain.
So they do
But
have-
sometimes you have to feel pain, so.
Right.
And that's how we bolster characters, just practicing and giving the opportunities to practice those skills.
One more question was about the emotional thing that you
Yes.
said about. So we know how, I have little experience bringing the hyper one down, but is there any hints or advice you would give to bring the ones who are in the blue zone up?
Yeah, that's a
Because
great
I have
question.
another kid who will freeze, not answer, block out. And it's I'm talking, but I'm not getting through.
Right.
So how do we unfreeze them?
That's a great question. So when your brain is either hyper or hypo aroused, like you saw, the glitter is going crazy. So you might be talking to your child hello, but they really can't hear you like you said. They're dysregulated and they're not in a place where they can hear you. And so I have found with kiddos who tend to be more in the blue zone, kind of a lower affect, to offer them choices. Would you like to draw? Would you like to stand up and take a break? Even creating a menu of options that you're okay with, Mom. Do you want me to set a timer and then come talk to you after you had a minute to feel your feelings? Or you could whip out a feelings chart and just say, point to where you are, just so I know. I also think putting it back on them and say, what would be helpful for you would be great. But I do have examples of those menus if you'd like for me to send it to you. And that way they have an element of choice in communicating their feelings to you. Also, we engage kids at the prefrontal cortex level, so the planning and thinking area of the brain, which is not fully developed till they're 25. We engage them there a lot, and often we need to help stabilize the amygdala, the part that is controlling the feeling. Once that's stabilized, then they can talk to you. So you'll notice when you have the right strategy, words will come out, not necessarily flow out. They might say sad, mad, but as you reach that point, you're helping them know that this is a safe place to calm down the amygdala.
At home, I have no problem. I'm more worried about him at school. He's in high school, he's a freshman right now.
Yeah.
So what would he do? How do I teach him to get out of that zone at school is my thing. So if he is afraid even to go talk to the teachers if he has a question. So how do we get him more confident to go, and if he's like this now, I'm worried about how he would be in college and then go out in life, all those things. So.
That sounds valid. I think kind of holistically what I've said, talking to him and praising little aspects, he might need just encouragement of the things he is doing well. I was that kid, I never talked to my teachers because I was like, nope, I got it, I'm cool. Even when I wasn't, because I was scared, I was concerned what they were gonna say and figure out what I didn't know. And so maybe it's a relationship between teacher and student, that might be a conference. I think there's a range of there's a range of solutions to that, but I do think just tapping into him, like, what is this really about? And I know some parents utilize journals. They write to their kids and say, how was your day? And they can write back saying, oh, I got left out at lunch, or my cheese sandwich was cold, or whatever it may be. Maybe that's a better medium for him, and that way he's not having to use words, but he can still tell you what's going on. And then from there, maybe you could create an action plan.
Okay. I've tried to use options, and when I first started it, there were many people, providing those options. My kid would say, more TV, more candy. I said, no. And then I said, you can't have this and this and this and this. And she said, well, what is left there? What options do I have?
Yeah.
So that, I think, list of options might give me more ideas on
Yes.
what to offer. Because I said draw, write, I don't feel like doing it right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, what else do you want to talk? So, and she's only 5, so.
Yeah.
I've
Has
put
to be
myself in
developmental.
perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great
The
point.
options will help.
And it has to be a list of options that you are okay with.
Right.
Yes. And I'll send y'all, I have tons of resources in that regard.
That'll help. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Is it good to give them choices, or if you know something that it is good for them and we have to enforce that, like, okay, it is good for you and you have to do this, or we should give them choices?
Think about you as an
We
adult.
are also confused, like which.
Yeah, which to do.
Yes.
We know that research tells us that we function best when we have choices and the ability to navigate our worlds. So no, you can't get choices on everything, but where you can, like, would you like a blue shirt or red shirt? Would you like to go outside or inside? Wherever you can, it's great to build that in, because that fosters your relationship, but also sends the message to your kid, I trust you, you can make decisions for yourself. But in the moments where you can't, like where they're walking across the street or something like that, where they can't make a choice, then that's okay for you to say, this is what's best. But those get easier, and kids will respond more to when they can't have a choice if you provide them lots of opportunity to have a choice. So that's a good point. And like I said, I will email all of this to you and make this available. I have this sign in somewhere. Just make sure you did sign in so I can get these to you.
Sure.
And thank you again. Thanks so much.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank you for
it.
coming.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Should be an article here.
Yes, I did.
You got yours? Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming.
Yes. Everything you see here, I will send to you.
You just have our names and our kids' names there. Do you need our email?